Good evening. How everyone doing today? God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma J, Spirit Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight, not because of your, not because of your righteousness, not because of Israel righteousness. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 1 through 6. Now, now, we're talking about Israel, about to possess their land. So God letting them know, you're not getting this because you're righteousness or because of who you are. You're getting this because I made a promise to your ancestors. So he didn't want them to get in the land and start bragging about themselves. So God assured the Israelites that they would be able to inject the Canaanites, even though they are mighty and great uh, for them. The Israelite will not be construed of this their own righteousness, but rather to the wickedness of the land. So God is Xing them out their land because of their wickedness before the Israelite get in there. So it's faithfulness of God in performing his promise he had made to your father, your ancestors. So here Israel, you are now about to cross the Jordan to go in and possess the land, now greater and stronger than you. Now with a large city that have walls up to the sky. Now you remember last time the spies had went out with the first generation. The spies went out and came back. The wall too thick and tall. The people just so tall. And so the second generation, they didn't want they were too scared to enter the land. So this the third generation. The first generation died in Egypt. They weren't able to come out. Joseph, all of them had died. So this the third generation about to possess their land. So don't worry about what the spies had said, how great they is. They're greater than you, but you got somebody that's greater with you. So God warned the Israelites not to trust in their own strength. Because see, when they're trusting their own strength, like the other group, the generation, they were scared, but to rely on God's help. The first generation was scared to possess their land. And God said, rely on him, So don't do like the other generation did. They meant they wasn't going to cross that land. Now the people are strong and tall, the Ammonites, and you know about them and have heard it said, who can stand up against the Ammonites? Because see, they're powerful. They're tall, and so, but God is mighty, mighty in war. So that's why he's telling them, don't lean on your own understanding because you're going to be scared. He said, rely on him. So the description on how tall and stronger, they all were received from the spies. The Israelite had reached the confine of the promised land. They could see the promised land, But be assured today that the Lord your God is the one who give across, who gonna go across ahead of you, like Javon fire. So God said, I'm going ahead of y'all with fire. I'm going ahead of y'all with fire. Now he would destroy them. And he will subdue them because of you. And you will drive out, quickly as the Lord had promised you. So God said you're gonna drive them out quickly, because see, God gonna go ahead of you. He gonna bring them to attention to their front, and so God said y'all gonna drive them out quickly. Now God would go before the Israelites as a divine fire, to help them conquer their enemy. Fire was a symbol of holiness, and purification. Illustrate that God desired to purify the land of its wickedness people in order to make Israel a holy nation. See, they got to be driven out first, because see, Israel supposed to be a holy nation. And if they enter that land with all that stuff they was doing, they're gonna drive in that land doing the same, even though they will. That because of certain kings that gonna come their way. But into their land, fresh land with the milk and honey, they had to exile all those Canaanites that's living in there. And then God gonna purify the land before Israel and them enter the land. So because He making them a holy nation, He making them different from the other nation. Now, after the Lord your God had driven them out before you, do not say to yourself, the Lord had brought me here to take possession of this land because of my righteousness. So that's what He don't want them to say when they enter the land. He said, no. It is on the account of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is going to drive them out before you. And now it's the wickedness that they're doing on the land is the reason why He's driving them out. He got to purify their land before they enter the land. Now God will conquer Canaan, to execute justice, fulfill His oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and display His faithfulness to His word. Not because of your righteousness, but because of wickedness of the land. Now God will drive them out. Now, if it's not because of your righteousness or your integrity, that you are going to take possession of their land. Now, but on account of wickedness of these nations, the Lord God will drive them out before you. Now, to accomplish what he swore to your father, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, God giving this land, confirming the oath which is made due to their ancestors. So He letting them know, I made a promise to your ancestors. And that's the reason you're getting all this luxury. That's the reason why you're getting all this favor and everything else, because of your ancestors. I made a promise to Abraham that I was going to take care of his seed. I just put that out yesterday. I made a promise to Abraham that I would take care of y'all, his seed. And I'm going to make sure y'all taken care of, just like I promised. Now, understand, this is not because of your righteousness, that the Lord, and God kept stressing this, that the Lord your God is giving you this good land to possession. That's why I'm just saying, they getting a good land with milk and honey. God ain't just doing that just because. He could have did that to any other nation. He did it because of promise through Abraham. For you are stiff-necked people. See, God had to deal with them. Generation after generation. The first, second generation, they didn't want to parcel of the people was too big. He had them running around for 40 years. So now we dealing with another generation. So God loved the Israelite unconditional, eternal life, a promise of Abraham. Now the Israelite agreed to obey Him, and God promised to be faithful to them. Now God stuck to His promise. But see, God had to deal with a whole lot of stuff from the Israelite, which is, their ancestors. The last generation. Because their generation, they mumble, they want to go back to Egypt. They had cut up, and God made sure He fed them. He made sure they had water. He made sure they had everything they need. Now, no doubt that Israel nation had trembled in their sandals, at the thought of facing their big giant, so they got to face this big giant. That's that big giant, and God gonna make sure they fix it, face it, so however, God promised to be more than an ally to His people. Now, He promised to go ahead of them. God always go ahead of us in our battle. Now He promised to lead the charge into the battle. Now God conquer and take the land on their behalf. God kept His word and destroyed the Ammonites. The Israelite had got scared because they were so large and strong and big old tall wall and gates and everything. Now they said, who can stand against them? And you got a mighty You got a mighty God with you, and you asking who can stand up against them. God had ensured them that He would go ahead of them, and they're still fighting. So with uncertainty, about who you are in facing your giant, we have to remember that God is more than just a friendly ally. He will conquer our insecurity that we see. They see the big giant. Now David had no problem facing his big giant because he had confidence in God. Israelite, all of them. That's why God called them a stiff neck. They don't have faith in God. They started scared of the giant. Now see that God stepped in on their behalf. Now when we walk through the challenges and face the giant in our own lives, now it was God who won the war. And that's just like when we in our battle, we don't win. God win the battle because God gonna get the glory. He gonna get the victory, And so for God who won the war for us, just like He did for the Israelites, and we can give God the glory also in our storm. Now God was devoted with fire. He said, I'm going to hit y'all with fire. For not even a giant could not stand against God. Now they said, who can stand against the Ammonites? These some strong, powerful people, but who can stand against the Ammonites? God. God stood against the Ammonites, and He won and got victory. If the Israelites had to continue on driving them out that land. But God had went into that land and stood against the giants that the Israelite was afraid of. Sometimes you get scared of your giant and you freeze up, you know. But God said, I'm with you. I'm going ahead of you. And so the first time the Israelites they wanted to enter their promised land because these people were so big and so tall and strong. But God said, not this time. Not this time. When God said, this is it. This is your time. Ain't no turning back. Ain't no scheduling of the next season. When God says it, this is it. Because y'all missed the last time to enter your promised land. Because of the giant. You're going to face your giant, and this time you're going to cross over. You're going to cross over. Ain't no scheduling no another season. Ain't no going through no more training. You're going to enter this land. This time. And that's what God said. They will enter this land. They will enter this land. Because they got this far. And you get to a stumbling block. And that's the same way with me. I'm not afraid to cross over. I'm being blocked from the devil for me crossing over to the other side. And so we got to just keep on standing against your giant. Eventually, if you don't never give up and keep on standing, the devil will go ahead on to someone else. But we got to keep on standing. We have to not give up. And we have to not settle. We have to not compromise with the devil. And that's the first thing Jesus said, don't compromise with the devil. And so God said they're going to enter their promised land. We're going to enter this. God said this is the time. No more scheduling. You're going to enter this promised land. You're going to face your giants that your ancestors were scared of the last time. So that's the story I have. They enter into their promised land. And they come to a crossroad with their giant. Get right there. And so that's what God said. Don't rely on your own strength. Rely on Him so you can face your giant. Now see, David had no problem facing the giant. David had a connection, and that's the thing. We have to have a connection with God to be comfortable, to believe that God got you. David had a connection with God. David went out there and faced his big old giant. He wasn't scared. He had a connection with God. He knowing God was going to step in. The same with Abraham. So it won't be for Abraham You know, God is favoring the Israelite because God made a promise to Abraham. You know, I'm gonna take care of your seed. You know, I'm gonna make sure, you know, they okay. You know, I'm gonna make sure they follow through. So God made that promise to Abraham. You know, and they didn't want to enter the land the first time. Okay, this time they're gonna enter the land. Enter the land this time. You know, this time you're not gonna worry about that giant. You're not gonna worry about that tall wall. You know, I'm going ahead of you with fire. You know, and so you're gonna come behind me and you're gonna conquer, you know, conquer this land. You know, so that's all I have for you today. It was short and sweet, you know, not because of the Israelite righteousness, you know, it because I made a promise to your ancestors. You know, that's the reason why you entered into this wonderful, beautiful land, you know. So they think they got favor, but God had to let them know why you got favor, you know. And so that's all I have for you today. Y'all have a nice day. Oh, you can schedule Bible study. You know, I love Bible stuff. You know, I'm a teach. We can teach from the Bible. You know, just like I love it, I'm gonna make sure you love it too. Cause once you start reading it and getting into it, you know, you ain't gonna help but to love to read your Bible. You're gonna learn more about God. You're gonna learn more about Jesus. You know, and also spiritual healing. You know, fast every day. You know, you can book a reading. You know, predict your future. You know, I'm a missing divine. Missing divine. You know somebody that's missing. You can leave a picture and their name on my TikTok account. You know, so make sure my information gonna be down below, and make sure you leave your name and phone number, and I get back to you as soon as possible. You know, thank you, and you have a nice day.